Welcome back to our video series on scaling your AI startup in under 6 weeks. My name is Yanni. I'm a growth partner here at Thinkk, and I appreciate you taking the time to be with us. Today, we're going to talk about expanding. In other words, expanding your company beyond what it originally was. This might mean adding new divisions, growing profitably, entering new markets in different ways. And so, it's going to be a really, really interesting episode that most companies will hope to one day get to. But before we get into it, let's go ahead and just cover the source of our credibility so that you know where your information is coming from. On my side, I have over a decade of experience either launching, growing, advising, running, investing in multiple businesses. And on the Think side of things, last year in 2024, we advised over 45 different AI startups in one form or another. And so everything that you're going to be learning is going to stem down to a combination of my personal experience, as well as some of the data driven insights and proven strategies that we've learned from working with so many different firms. The first thing to keep in mind here, before you ever even get the question about, hey, is this the time to expand, is something that we call the readiness check. In other words, are you actually ready to do this, or do you simply want to? Do you have maybe like a shiny object syndrome or something along these lines? And there's three main questions that you can ask yourself before you even consider expanding into any new territories or adding new divisions or anything else. And so the first one is going to be, do you actually dominate the market that you're in right now? This is a really good question because if what you're trying to do is dominate your existing market and you haven't even accomplished that, why are you looking to other markets right now? You're much better off focusing on the thing that you're doing, nailing that. And then once you actually have that and you've really saturated your market, go ahead and expand into something else. But really, if you want to do this properly and look at this from an analytical standpoint, a lot of times we actually advise clients that have maybe even somewhere around a 30% market share in whatever your niche is that you're actually operating in right now. And once you've actually crossed that line, then it becomes a, let's say, reasonable proposition that, hey, I think I want to expand beyond what my little niche is or what, beyond my little market is right now to go ahead and get new customers and find additional sources of growth for my company. If you have not hit that sort of level yet, continue to work in your existing marketplace or in your existing market. There's typically a lot more gains you can find there, and it's much better to nail one thing than to have two unnailed things that you're constantly working on. The second thing that you want to look at is your company or is your business actually sustainable? Like, do you have this operational excellence, which means that your core business actually runs itself and does a good job and is profitable and does all the things that you need to do already before you look at going ahead and expanding or adding other divisions or adding other markets or anything else? So, this is something that's also really important to look at. The other thing you want to consider is, do you actually have the capital? Do you have the team members? Do you have the time? Do you have the effort to spare? Because when you go ahead and add an extra division, it's almost, it's not necessarily the same exact amount of effort as starting another company, but there is a learning curve, and you are going to have to allocate time and resources in the form of human and technological and financial capital to it. And so, the big thing that you want to remember here is that if you are missing any of these three things, please stop. Make sure that you're absolutely owning your existing market. Make sure that your core business is sustainable. It runs itself. It doesn't need any sort of outside support. And also make sure that you have the time and effort and the capital to actually spare to go ahead and expand. Because if you're not, all you're going to do is just add one other division that you are still not mastering. So you're much better off nailing the one thing and then taking the lessons that you learn into something else rather than trying to figure out two things at a time. When you finally decide to do that, there's a few different expansion paths, though, that we do like to follow. And these are pretty straightforward paths that we're going to go ahead and describe now. First one's going to be vertical integration. The second one's going to be horizontal. And the third one's just going to be plain and simple, a brand new market entry. So, what is vertical integration, which is perhaps the most common and actually the highest probability of success when it comes down to really expanding your startup? The first one is going to be this vertical integration. In other words, what you're doing is you're moving up or down your supply chain. You're leveraging an existing audience. You're leveraging existing knowledge and expertise to just maybe add a few extra services that might be slightly below or slightly above what you're doing right now. And so, one example that I might give you is if you had an Airbnb accounting software, or a VRBO accounting software, maybe what you might end up doing is adding, in addition to this software, maybe you go ahead and add done for you bookkeeping, or you add tax consulting. And so you're really taking advantage of your existing marketplace, your existing value prop, basically just going ahead and moving one step up or one step down to go ahead and expand exactly what you're doing. And again, this has a pretty high probability of success, somewhere around typically upwards of 70%. The second thing that you might want to do is actually, though, look at horizontal integration. And so this just refers to moving into a slightly adjacent market. In other words, you're not staying exactly on that tax consulting or whatever it happens to be. You might be moving it, into a slightly different market. And so if we were to use, let's say, a health example here, let's say that you owned a health company. And in the beginning, The thing that you actually did really well was you offered yoga services or something along those lines. Well, a horizontal expansion might take the form of actually moving into something like Pilates or fitness or dietetics, or in other words, doing something else here, which is in a slightly adjacent market, but still pretty comparable to what you're doing. And so this is what a horizontal integration or a horizontal expansion might look like. The final one, by the way, on the previous note, this one typically has somewhere around a 50% success rate from what we've seen across all companies. The final note here is actually, or the final way that you might actually go about doing this is just plain and simply just entering a new market. And obviously, this one has the lowest probability of actually succeeding. And typically, this is going to be around 20 or 30%. Why? Because this is hard to do. And so, if you do decide to go this route, you do want to make sure that you're going to be leveraging some sort of core expertise. Okay. And so, one company that's actually really, really good at this is a company called General Electric. Obviously, they're called General Electric, but somehow they're in aviation and they're making jet engines and they're making light bulbs and doing all these different things. And so, if you do decide to expand completely into a new market or completely into a new category, what you need to do is leverage some sort of existing expertise, some sort of existing core competency that you can go ahead then and leverage into that new market. And so no longer is your core competency, hey, I'm really good at yoga. It's actually going to be, in the case of General Electric, actually just a really good core competence in engineering, which then can then go and be applied across a range of different industries or markets or niches. One of the things that you might find when you do go ahead and expand, though, into a new market, whether that's vertical integration, horizontal, or plain and simple, just a brand new market, is that your identity is going to change and your target market might change a little bit and your copy is going to change and your value proposition and all these other things. And so here's an example of one firm that actually went ahead and did this. A New York City based client of ours who originally was really involved in real estate investments, finally actually decided after a little bit of time to go ahead and get involved in public equities. And so what that means is they're investing in stocks and companies like Apple and Nvidia and some of these other firms. And this is an amazing thing, but as you can understand, it actually changed the identity of the firm. And so the original identity may have been something along the lines of a real estate investment firm, which is exactly what they were doing in the beginning. But when they went ahead and added public equities, obviously the dynamic and the identity is going to change. And so the final form of this is going to be maybe something along the lines of like a specialized asset management firm. And so the point we're trying to get across here is just understand that when you do go ahead and expand, whether that's vertical or horizontal or into a completely new category, that you are going to inevitably change the identity of your firm. You are going to change who your target market is, and things are going to change. You're going to require some pivots in the existing company. So make sure that you understand this before you go ahead and do that. If you have any questions on going ahead and expanding your business, making it bigger, adding new divisions, looking at new markets, and analyzing whether or not you actually want to get involved in them, go ahead and book a one-on-one workshop over at Thinkk.com. I will personally help you on this stuff. It's one of my favorite topics to talk about. And if that is not the right move for you right now, I'm also going ahead and add a couple other educational resources somewhere around here, maybe in a bio or in a description or something that you can go ahead and use to go ahead and continue to learn at zero cost to you. Thank you very, very much for going ahead and taking the time. I really appreciate you being here with us. It's a real honor to go ahead and teach you guys this stuff. And I really appreciate being here. I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.